Hi, my name is Bianca. I'm a first-year MIT student, and you're listening to CHRW.
You're listening to the Forum on CHRW. My name is David Seston. This project is designed to be a free and open area for students to ask the hard questions. It is for the students, by the students, and instead of a space for lecturers and academics, it's for the average student to ask questions and say what's on their mind without fear, in the hopes of sparking conversations around campus and around the world. And the Forum. I keep wanting to say we're back. The thing, and I do this every episode because I haven't come up with something better yet. We're not back. We didn't go anywhere. We just kept talking. So again, I'm joined by Michael, Marie, and Yoav. And I just met Marie, so for me to remember her name, that is really impressive.
Oh, man.
I'm just going to launch right back into what we were talking about, and that's what should be done for the students. So knowing what the university policy is, where do you think we should go? Do you think I'm being too hard on them?
I mean, I think you're, like you said, you're being harder than we were. I honestly have never seen a concerted effort from the USC to actively protect, particularly like visible minorities, Arabs on campus, visible Muslims on campus, things like that. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that Rhonda is a woman and Rhonda is a woman of color and that she was alone at the booth, and that is in a lot of ways what facilitated it as well.
So that circles back. The first thing before I forget about it, it disturbs me to no end that there is actual allegations of physical assault. Being spit on is an assault. And I don't know if the USC knows about it. It's entirely possible that it just hasn't been reported or underreported. I would very much like to believe that, and I'm going to go with that belief until proven otherwise. But as far as I'm concerned, after this show, they can't do that anymore. And if it happens again, I'll call them on it, and I believe everybody that listens to the show and everybody in this room needs to call them on it. Second of all, you said that how did you phrase it? Groups, visible minorities, marginalized groups, and there was something else. Anyway, that idea that their event should be protected, I actually have an issue with. Because in any situation where there is the potentiality for this to happen, no matter who the group is, there should be protection. There should be, because obviously this event, I'm a first year student. I don't know that anything else has happened. This, for a lot of first years, this is the formative concept of what happens at events like this at Western. It doesn't matter who it is. If there's going to be a problem, the USC and the university itself have to take steps to stop that from happening. That's my opinion. What do you guys think?
I agree. Yeah, I think that it should definitely be, upon, at the very least, upon request. If you guys want security and you feel, because it sounds as if this is recurring, then yeah, you should definitely be able to request security for something as hotly debated as this.
Yeah.
Actually, there's not much more I can say about that.
No, I think that's.
I'm just thinking, and I don't have a set opinion on this, but from what I'm thinking and feeling right now, I don't think that it would be the right course of action to expel the students that were involved with that. That seems like way too severe to kind of use them as an example, you could say. But I really just think that there needs to be a structural change. And what's the root at the university, as we were talking about before? What led up to such aggression? And what can prevent, something maybe more serious from happening next time? So I think that's where the conversation should go, not, some really punitive measures on these individuals. That's
my personal opinion is I think both should happen, but that's just me. I'm not forgiving. I'm really not, because I have zero tolerance for stuff. This seems like a good point to lead into words, and another show I'm going to do down the future. The first year Softs ran a program called Words Matter for Western, and this leads right up to it. And both groups are guilty of this one. And words have been tossed around. Words were tossed around during the actual event, during what actually happened. People were using words like terrorist and if events use the words like terrorist, particularly to label a group, not okay. But you yourself, Michael, used the term Zionist.
I did.
Without being able to completely identify or back up your statement.
Right.
Do you know the person individually?
No, but I mean, I was I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So I'll explain myself.
Well, no.
Oh,
hold on. We'll get into that in a
Okay.
second. But it's very easy to slip into a mind frame of identifying somebody specifically as this. Leading up to this event, somebody I respect fell into that trap. And I lost sleep over calling them on it. And I did.
Right.
So in this instance, it's very, very easy to just say, oh, well, they're doing this because they're Zionists. It's okay to intimidate them because they're terrorists.
Right. Okay.
The words that are being said have huge impact.
Sure. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So now I will let you
very
speak.
good.
Super excited to hear this,
So,
actually.
I would defend my use of the word Zionist. I think it was the right word to use, because Zionist is not a word to stigmatize somebody. It has to do with a historical movement and a system of belief, an ideology that one would hold that is in support of making Palestine the homeland for the Jewish people. And but just evidently by the things that they were saying is the first thing that was clear is that they had this ideology, and it's just in the arguments they were using. That is the evidence that they were Zionists and had a Zionist position. So no stigma there. That's just what they were.
I'll let everybody else before I...
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a false equivalency as well. I mean, we have always made it very clear, and we teach our members coming in every year, that there are three distinct categories when you're having this conversation. There are Zionists, there are Jews, and there are Israelis. There can be overlap between those three things, or there can be no overlap between those three things. One is an ideology, a political ideology. One is an ethnicity and a religion, and the other is a nationality. Those three things can overlap or not, but to say that someone is a Zionist is not in any way, it's not derogatory. It's to identify an ideology. It's the same as saying someone is a feminist or someone is, a Marxist. Yeah. It's a political ideology.
As the Jew, I can back this up. Actually, I kind of.
Okay.
I
did not see it going that way anyway.
No, totally. No, 100%. Zionist is it's 100% a political. But it's. I would personally, from my point of view, it's 100% political belief system. I mean, it is a religiously, ethnically motivated political belief system, but many political belief systems have that as well. They were saying, from what I've heard, they were saying things that had Zionist sentiments to them. I hope you guys weren't using it as some sort of slur, which I'm sure you weren't, because you guys are very respectful. But I think that's, fairly accurate.
Okay. See, I will admit when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not, but I will admit it if it ever happens. Interesting. I think my concern in there comes in that it was being tossed around after the word terrorist was coming around. And for people who aren't as maybe informed as I am, it seemed almost a backlash against. And without the time to go fully into it, which the Gazette didn't have, we'll leave it at that. It can be misconstrued, and particularly in this instance, my personal curiosity was, why did they go for the word Zionist as opposed to idiot? Because again, we don't know the full ethnicity and nationality of the people who did it. And lumping it together without full facts is the way to leap to bat. Yes, they were saying things that would lead you down that path, but at the same time, the way my mind works is if little bit of legal background, whatever. If somebody were to try and stir the pot, how would they do it? Because you said they haven't. I'm pointing at Marie because you can't see me do it. Because you said this hasn't happened in a little while, and then all of a sudden it happened again. So. I'm not saying that that's what happened, but without hard evidence, there's always a question for me. And in this instance, I would much rather, because there's still that optimist in me, I would much rather it was just a bunch of idiots. Here goes Yoav.
I may backtrack. I would love to find out, did you call them Zionists, or did you call what they were saying Zionist?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, seeing as Zionist just refers, like, it's just a different usage of the same root, right? So whether what they say, like somebody who says Zionist things, I would call them a Zionist. I see no distinction. You know, my own father, I would say, is a Zionist. He self-identified as a Zionist. He's not Jewish, nor is he from Israel. So I can see potentially that the word could possibly be used derogatory, but I don't think you can make that assumption, considering people self-identify, and it simply talks about a belief system and ideology, and nothing to do with identity of race or religion or national.
Because like the one thing that I would say, I guess, and you know, especially in the heat of the moment, I wouldn't blame you for using that word. I personally feel as if people can have some Zionist sentiments, also share some of your guys' beliefs, which are like effectively anti-Zionist, if I may say so.
Right.
So don't necessarily identify as a Zionist. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it can be used to, I guess it's not as much like as a slur, but sort of painting someone with a broad brush, and you know, sort of jumping to conclusions.
And that's where I was going with it, is that there is factual evidence to maybe back it up, but particularly how the article was written and how it was quoted, that word was put in a negative context. So, you know, that was my concern. I'm not 100% sure if the lady who was interviewed for the article, I can't remember her name because I don't remember names. I don't know if that's how she was intended, but again, when we're dealing with the media, you always have to be careful at how anything can be taken. So, you know, at the same time, you guys, this half of the room that you can't see, as I realize I'm pointing again, certainly took exception to the word terrorist being used. And there can be justification for this. I'm sorry, Yasser Arafat was actually labeled as a terrorist. Then he won the Nobel Peace Prize. So the other side of the equation can use the exact same argument that you did for a word that you certainly don't want to be bandied at you. So again, my thought is before powerful words get bantied around. Yeah.
And I just want to chime in, I guess, and say that it's totally unacceptable to call. Who did they call terrorists in particularly? What do we have a particular quote?
They were. I didn't.
Anyone who
It's
would
okay.
be defending Palestinians. They label Palestinians as a whole generally.
That's
when they get that article.
That's horrifying. That's absolutely terrible. In the same way that I hope you don't call all Israelis. All Israelis. What would be the word?
Zionists, yeah.
If you want to say Zionists or terrorists or like whatever other like words that you guys use to explain people who are
supporters of the ideology.
Supporters of the ideology that you're against.
Right.
We should never call all Palestinians terrorists or anybody who defends Palestinians terrorists.
Yeah, no, this issue is very important to us. We've had members in the past, very committed, strong members that were from Israel and clearly anti-Zionist against the ideology, and we try to make it clear that we can continuously bring it up that there's a major distinction between anti-Semitism, which labeling all Israelis.
Yeah, I hate when people throw around anti-Semitism. I hate it. Yeah.
So we make it clear. We want to make a clear distinction to our members that we won't tolerate any anti-Semitism at all. So any of the sort. So it's a clear line in the sand for us.
Well, that's good. I don't think I could add any more to other than yes, this is the way it should be. Common sense is dictating a little bit. So where do we go from here? Where does Western University go from here? This happened. I don't want to see it ignored because something bad happened, and not in the level of, oh my God, I walked into the president's car and he's a horrible, horrible person level. This is, please, earlier issue I have. This is honest to God, bad stuff, not okay. So where do we go as a university, as a community, as a group? Where do we go?
I want to see formal debates. I feel like that's something that would be interesting. I don't know if it would potentially, accidentally potentially be a way to excite people in the wrong way. But I think that, some sort of outlet to have that sort of discussion that isn't so angry, intimidating. I feel like that's like one step that the university could take. Yeah.
Before you go into it,
Okay.
has IOC and SPHR ever had a formal debate?
I mean, I think years ago there might have been one. There's a few problems logistically with the debate. Obviously, putting people in a room together that have very fundamental beliefs that are different could be dangerous to people. And there's also problems with the mandates of both clubs. SPHRs, SJPs, SIAs, other groups that work for pro-Palestinian work across North America generally have a policy of trying not to normalize things, especially things that are just reproduced by the Israeli state, that they're not really verifiable. And Israel on Campus as an international organization, it's like Israel on Campus Western is a feeder of a larger organization, and that organization doesn't allow their members to work with groups that support the BDS movement.
I wanted to further add on that a little bit. Yeah, I agree with what Marie said. There's the issue of kind of false equivalency that we worry about in clubs that support Palestine on campus. Almost the idea that it's an equal war. There's two sides that have these legitimate points to talk about. These two perspectives on war that are kind of equal, almost like a clash of different civilizations, and that we really want to take away this image because it doesn't reflect the unilateral oppression of the Palestinians. So that's what we're scared of doing in entering these debates. But having said that, we have had events. Just this year on campus, we had a huge talk on anti-Semitism versus anti-Zionism. There were many diverse members, people that were supporting Israel, people that were supporting Palestine, and there was a really fruitful and intelligent conversation about it.
Okay.
So it has happened. We're just concerned about the conditions.
There's.
I feel like as much as there's such a focus on, of course, the solidarity for Palestinian human rights, just even alone with the name Israel Apartheid Week, that denotes a clash. That denotes, as I said earlier, whether or not it's just or unjust. Antagonizing. And when you guys discuss things and things like that, and I'm sure you support many of you support the BDS movement as well, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. That's about conflict. That's about war. And the war does affect civilians on both sides. So I would have to disagree. I would say that that there is a clash, and by having an Israeli Apartheid Week, you are taking on a debate about how one group is treating another group. What should change, who should be, and who's to blame as well. So I feel as if because both are legitimate clubs, they are on legitimate similar platforms, and they're is a clash, it's not necessarily about the war in itself, but in the conduct. Conduct of the countries, I would say. Yeah.
No, and I see your point, and I think that as much as we support Palestine and see it through a perspective of colonization, of course, in any conflict, there's crimes on every side. Really violent crimes. But I think that the perspective we have puts it on a different level. For example, could I just I just had an analogy here. I think you all always see obvious problems with having that white students union having a debate with the black students union.
Oh yeah,
or something like how awful would that be? Right?
No.
For another week.
You don't think so?
No, not in the slightest. Just because there is a difference of opinion, just because there is a difference of view, maybe even if because there's a difference of power, does not stop the necessity for debate. How is a conflict that takes over two countries, or even, I hate the term race, and that is a completely different issue, but two separate groups, ethnic groups, there's no good word for this. How can there ever be a resolution to a conflict if those two groups can't sit down and talk? Because there's only one other option besides that, and that's the annihilation of one group or another. And if anybody suggests that, I will kindly escort them out the building. The reality of the matter is you may be on two different levels. You may have two fundamental different viewpoints. Though I agree Marie's statement that security is a huge issue, because obviously we just saw that it's a huge issue. But to say, well, we don't agree with you, so we can't have a debate.
We're not necessarily saying that. We're just kind of raising problems. We've been open to the debate, but it's a very delicate issue, and I'll let Marie speak on that.
And I understand that people don't like the word apartheid. We can go with that. But I would say that Israeli Apartheid Week does actually promote debate. I have more conversations about this the entire week long than I do the rest of my school year. Absolutely. It brings it to everyone's consciousness. We have radio discussions like this, and those come out of being present and being on it. And the term, Israeli Apartheid Week, comes from an international series of events. It's not like Western decided that that's what we wanted to call it. It's that's what activists all over the world have decided to call it, including South African activists and things like that.
But it was your choice to name it that.
Absolutely. I think it yes. applies. I mean, the term apartheid applies to two sets of laws used on two sets of people, and I think that Israelis living under civilian law and Palestinians living under military law qualifies.
I think the best statement I heard, though, out of everything, and I'm sorry, there is a bunch of rhetoric, and whenever we talk about stuff like this, there is rhetoric, but the best thing I heard, and the one that gave me hope, was you said you were open to it.
I am, and I think other members of our club are too. We had a long discussion actually. There was a possibility of debating. Was it Israel on campus that the club was going to debate? I think so. Earlier this year, and for various formalities, we turned it down. But just because we didn't really have a say in setting the conditions, it wasn't really.
So
that's not fair. It wasn't the idea of it itself that we rejected.
It's almost like you need a third-party mediation. Oh my god!
Who could do that? I don't know.
Well, don't look it over here.
Oh man!
No. But it's almost like two opposing groups need a third party to sit there and go, all right, behave.
We do Camp David.
Camp David.
No. That was funny, but no. So, but do you think? There's no way to answer this question, so I'm not even going to ask it. But I think debate is a wonderful idea. What else can we do to foster this? Because the reality of the matter is, instead of fostering or condoning or even punishing bad behavior, I think we need to encourage good behavior. I will preface this: when I came up with this idea Saturday while I was doing the top 30, I picked two people I knew that were in complete oppositions, and both of them jumped at the idea without hesitation and with just a few questions. So that gives me hope as well. So But what else? You know, what else?
Actually, just as a quick question to you guys as well, as representative SPHR, because I've never actually talked to you guys before this. In discussion of good behavior, how do you guys feel about the behavior of other organized Palestinian human rights clubs across campus who have done things like this as an organized, formal approach? So, for example, I think it was a few weeks or months ago, that you said the SIAS, right? Is it SIAS is one of the Students Against Israeli Apartheid. That was they had an organized event where they protested at a Hanukkah party on campus, and I guess I also kind of wanted to hear about would you guys speak out against that behavior? Oh, it was at York University.
They protested at a Hanukkah party at York?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've not heard that. We're pretty close with a lot of the organizers at York. I've not heard that. Yeah, so obviously if students under our leadership were to conduct something like that, we would obviously tell them not to do that, and then we would condemn that, of course. I've not heard that, and we're in pretty close contact with a lot of organizers at York, and I've not heard of that at all.
No, neither have I.
Okay, it may be a similar situation in that case, in which case I may be saying some sort of defamation, so I would say that, I don't know. When I read it, it said that they all, identified with SIAS, and that it was, it was an organized thing, but I'll send you guys the article about it, actually, as well.
Yeah, please send it, yeah. That's
Well, so once again, we'll boil it down to, if in any way, shape, or form what you're doing is... don't be mean. Don't be horrible to other people. The reality of the matter is, even if you don't agree with them on a fundamental level, these are your fellow students, they are your fellow Canadians, or at least fellow residents of this country. They are fellow people. They deserve a modicum of respect. And if for any time you do something in protestation, and please have beliefs, have passions, have strong opinions on things, and do something about it. But if for a moment you sit there and go, is this maybe not the best idea in the world? Then maybe you should talk about it a little bit more, because what's the worst that happens? The event goes by and you don't gang up on a girl. So unfortunately we're gonna run out of time on that one. I've even caused people to skip classes because I'm a horrible person.
and it's logic.
Well, it was logical that you... No, it's not.
It's not.
I tried. This is a hard one. This was a hard one. It will continue to be a hard conversation. And I really, really want to thank Yoav, Marie, yay, and Michael for volunteering to do this and for speaking so well on it. And guess what? They sat in the same room for an hour and had a hard conversation, and nobody got mad at each other.
Not at all.
No.
And I'll leave it at that. This is the Forum. And where's my stop button?